Welcome to a very special conversation today. Hi, Abby. I'm so excited to
Hi,
be here
I'm
with
so
you.
excited. Same.
So,
This is gonna
today
be awesome.
I know, we're going to do a podcast swap, which I've been super excited about these because it's just being smart about our time as entrepreneurs and still having great conversations. So, we're both
Mm.
going to kind of chime in and share and support each other in sharing answering questions that we have for each other that we
Yeah,
think are
I know.
going to
I
serve
was
our audience.
I was gonna say this is like a very selfish interview, maybe, but also everyone else is gonna benefit. So it'll be great.
The other thing that's super fun is we're both in Minnesota right now. So we're both
Mhm.
Minnesota girls. And
Yes.
so while I wish we were doing this in person, we're pretty far apart.
Yeah, I know. I know. Where are you again?
We're like north of Fargo Moorhead. So
Okay.
we're by Grand
I
Forks.
was gonna say we were up in Grand Marais, like the tippy top of Minnesota,
Oh,
just this last week, which was fun. But
oh my
yes.
gosh. It's gorgeous there. So I bet it was like a wonderful trip.
Yeah, it is beautiful. It's definitely gonna be colder now, I'm sure, but yes. It was like the perfect end to now let's pack up the camper and put it away, so it'll be great.
Same, same. My husband just winterized our camper, but of course we go down south in the winter, so
Yeah.
we're counting down the days. Oh, okay,
Yeah, I
Abby,
know. Rub it
for
in.
those sorry. Oh, for those who might not, in my audience at least, know who
Mhm.
you and Courtney and Dual Collective happen to be, which I don't think that's many, but can you share a little bit
Yeah.
about where you are and what you do and all that good stuff?
For sure, yeah. So I am one half of the Duo Collective. My other half, Courtney, is on the design side. She's actually enjoying a very much needed vacation this week. Halloween is her favorite. So she is off decorating and getting ready for her Halloween party on Saturday and doing all of the fun fall things that she wants to do. So we are an organic marketing agency, just meaning that we specialize in non paid strategies for growth. So, Court is the brand side. So, she's the one that makes everything about our brand pretty. And then I am on the SEO side. So, I do a lot more in Excel, which scares her, and Illustrator scares me. So, we kind of balance each other out really nicely. Um, we have a team of 7 now, including us, which is really fun. So, all women, all spread out around the world. So we have a designer in Scotland, we have someone in Maryland, we have someone in Chicago. So it's really fun to have like a spread out team and people touching all aspects of the business and just really helping to round out what we can offer to our clients. So we really specialize in helping people get seen and found and be memorable. So building brands that really stand out, again, are uniquely you, and then also helping you get found on search engines and having a well built website with really good structure. So that's kind of what we specialize in with our clients.
I love that.
And then same goes. I would love to hear. So, like, our audience, I know, is going to be just completely jazzed to hear from you and all of the strategies you have. We have had on our list for some time now, like podcast growth strategies. And I'm like, I have just like, I know we've had a podcast for a long time, but I don't know enough about this. So, I'm
Mhm.
beyond excited to have you on the pod to talk about it. So, why don't you give everyone a little intro too?
Oh, for sure. And one thing I'll say is you guys have the best brand. I mean, so it just makes sense that Courtney is such an expert in that because it's so beautiful. I've
Thank
always
you.
loved it. So, yes, my name is Kylie, and I actually come from the podcast world. I ran Amy Porterfield's podcast for 5 years. Got the opportunity to go and work with Kathy Heller as her chief growth officer after that, and really just decided I wanted to go and support female entrepreneurs with their podcast growth. Because with Amy, we saw like a 234% growth based on really strategic approaches to it. And since then, working with my clients, we've had, I just got off a call with a client who gained over 11,000 new followers to her podcast in less than 6 months. She grew up by 75%. But the cool part is when we set up these strategic systems and funnels to grow our podcast and really make our listeners turn them into subscribers and then paying customers, we see our business revenue grow. And so another client had like a 77% revenue increase this year when she dropped her course because of the podcast funnels we put together. So I get really excited about geeking out on, especially with established podcasters. That's really who I work with, mostly female established podcasters who are just struggling to like see the growth and see how the podcast fits into the business. And it feels like it's been siloed, and it's like we pour so
Mhm.
much heart and soul and sweat and all the things into
Mhm.
it that we really need to be intentional about getting it out there. I mean, for you probably feel that way about blogs. Like it's so easy to put a blog out and not optimize it, and then it's just sitting there, this content that you really want to thrive and succeed. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I think, I mean, we always say that podcasting has been, like, our most fun way to market our business, but at the same time, it's like, it's really good to have something that's fun and also a revenue or a growth driver for your business, and it's about finding the magic between the 2 of it because you don't want to, like selfishly, I hate posting on Instagram, like, if I could just ditch that whole thing, I would be A-okay with it. And luckily, we have other people on our team who can help because that's not my, like, love. But this, like, podcasting is definitely one of our favorite things. So I think it is the magic of finding the way that you love to market and then figuring out how to do that in a way that can actually impact your business in a positive way. That's magic.
I agree. I love that you said that your podcast has been one of the most fun ways to market, because I agree. And especially because it's not like a light lift. It takes a little bit to really get it going. So when we can actually use it as a marketing tool, magic can happen.
Oh,
So I
yeah,
love
for
that.
sure. Okay, can I start with I feel like this is a perfect segue into a question. Okay, so I feel like we have a lot of listeners and you likely do too, and there's just a lot of people out there who are like, I've wanted to do a podcast forever, or like it's just been on their list. And I'd love to hear from you because you specialize in this of like what is the best why? Like the
Mm,
reason why someone should start a podcast because I think sometimes it can feel like a buzzword, like everyone's doing it. I feel like I
mm,
have to start a podcast. But without that why, you might not have the love for it. Or like you said, I think there's a stat out there that I read when we first started, and I don't know if it's still true about like you have to make it past 7 episodes or something like that because most people fail. And I was like, wow, only seven. Like that makes it feel heavy. So I'd love to know like what are some of the best whys that you've heard of why people have kind of started?
yeah. Well, I would say there's two things that come to mind. One, there's a unique opportunity that you have as a podcaster to spend 15, 20, 60 undivided minutes with your ideal customer and almost create this relationship with them where they feel like it's just different because they can have you in their earbuds when they're doing dishes or going for a walk or in the pickup line. And I hear it all the time where people will say, "Oh, I heard you in my head when I was doing XYZ," because it's an opportunity for them to get to know us intimately, to learn how we teach, and to really set ourselves up as a thought expert. And I see that all the time. I mean, I see clients come to me and say, I got asked to go speak at XYZ. I think they think my audience is bigger than it is because I have a podcast. And it's like, who cares? And then the other cool thing that is more of a stats one than the reasons that I hear, but when we look at like the amount of YouTube channels, I think there's like 1.5 million
Yeah.
blogs. You might know this one. There's like
I
billions
don't.
of blogs.
I
Okay.
because I bet you there's so many that are just completely inactive.
Oh, 100%, and there's an active podcast as well, right? But so if there's like I think I looked at it where it was like there was some billion amount of active blogs, there was like 1.5 million active YouTube channels. There was like 400,000 active podcasts. Mind you, those aren't even all your competition, right?
Mhm,
And so when you think about sizing it down to like we're both in the marketing category, I'm assuming. So when we size it down to the actual competition within that category, it's not that big. And to be able to like have that relationship and that platform to build a relationship with your audience that's so intimate where and it just also when you're using SEO for your podcast on those platforms, it's so much easier to rank and get in front of your audience versus Instagram
mhm.
and those types of things. So those are a couple reasons I just I truly believe a podcast, especially for female entrepreneurs, that's the way to go. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful way to do long form content.
Yeah, agreed. I think it is like I feel that too. I feel like it is a very personal way to market.
Mhm.
And it's like if you are out there being your real authentic self and talking to people just like as you are as a human without trying to like put on a mask or a costume or be someone else, it's going to feel natural and it's such an easy way to connect and people hear your viewpoint because you can read one
Mhm.
thing, but you hearing it, it's
Mhm.
different. I think it's just such a different way to connect with your audience and it's more unique than anything else.
Agree, and I mean, I think about the people I've gotten to meet. Like, even you, even
Mhm.
getting I mean, we we get to have this time together to get to know each other, and now, I hope we have this as, like, business best friends that not
I
best
know.
friends, business friends that we can
Yes,
continue
besties.
on. Maybe we'll be besties.
I know. I know. Yeah, no,
Mm,
I think the opportunity for guest interaction and the way to meet
mhm,
people and like
mm,
it's not just a marketing tactic, it's a community tactic as well, like
mwah,
a way to grow your community in a more
mhm,
personal way. So I agree. I think that's one of the big reasons I would say like if I guess personally if someone were starting a podcast just to monetize it, I think you'd probably feel a little bit unfulfilled in what you're doing because I think that connection and that relationship building, it's the driver that kind of like keeps you wanting to go beyond those first
mhm.
7 or whatever that stat
Yes.
is.
Yeah, I think they call it pod fade, and yeah, I think it's like 7 to 10 episodes. It's really easy to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a big reason for that is because you don't figure out how to batch your content and you don't figure out how to delegate, editing out because editing will burn you out. So, if you are a female podcaster or anyone, I guess, but who is thinking about starting a podcast, if you can delegate out editing your podcast from the get-go, I highly recommend it. It will make such a difference for you.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, I delegated it to my husband. I don't know that he loves that, but he does it. And he's great at it. And so I think that is something that has helped us succeed at the beginning because recording
Yeah.
is fun. Court and I sit together and record and
Mhm.
bring on guests occasionally and all of that. But it's a lot of work then behind the
Mhm.
scenes. Like after you're done recording, it's not done unless you have other help. So I do definitely owe that to like all the people who have helped us behind the scenes from
Mhm.
writing show notes, which I'm sure we're going to talk a whole lot about in blogs and all of that in addition to editing. Like if we had to do everything, yeah, we might have been stuck at that 7.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I wanna ask you a question now.
Mhm.
Talk to me about well, I've heard that people feel that SEO isn't actually that effective anymore now that we have AI. I'm
Mhm.
sure I actually just followed your launch, and so I know this was a big topic in it. So, what is going on with that? What do we need to know? What's important for us? Because I'm all about having your show notes as a blog style show notes, and we're gonna talk yes, we're definitely gonna talk about that, but what do we need to know has shifted within that world?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the mindset is that AI is replacing SEO, which isn't the case. I like to think of them as they are just like conjoined now. They're just
Mhm.
like they
Yeah.
married. They got together and now they are one and we have to do both in order to be successful on both. So I always talk about the way SEO works is that one, they SEO search engines do 3 things. So they crawl your website, they index your content, and then they rank you. So you have to do those 3 things in order to show up on AI because AI tools, the only way for them to cite you is if you already exist in the internet's index. And if you don't exist there, AI can't feature you. So you're losing this opportunity if you don't have a solid foundation for your SEO because you can't be found anyways. So it's something where they work hand in hand. And I think if it's not like you can just skip SEO and jump straight to AI, like you have to be there and have that foundation. And a lot of times, the way that ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, all of those tools are finding new podcasts is because they're indexed somewhere on the web. So even if you don't have blog posts associated, Spotify does or Apple does, like you're indexed somewhere through your podcast alone. and that's how they're going to find you. But there's only so many words you can put there. And these tools aren't that great right now at understanding things outside of written words. So, images, voice, like it's getting better. And I'm sure one day they will get better. But without the context and taking your podcast and putting that into a blog, it's not going to have the full context of your episode. It's going to have your episode description and your episode title, but not everything. And I
Mhm.
think it just sometimes doesn't do justice when you talk you if especially if you have an hour-long episode,
Mhm.
you talk about a lot of stuff and that stuff can definitely be cited and featured in AI, but not if it's not first indexed. So, I think like you have to understand the relationship between how like search engines work and how AI works. And when you think about them as working together rather than fighting each other,
Mm.
it just makes a whole lot more sense as to why you need both.
Okay. That was put so well, and I love just the way you explained it is so helpful to really understand, okay, we can't do AI until we get that correct. So I
Mhm.
love it. Okay. Where if you were to give like a crash course on finding how you're ranking and continually like tracking it, where do people go? How can we do that?
Yeah, so I one of my favorite tools that I always recommend to like all of my students, all of my clients, if anyone's doing just SEO for just themselves. So I think sometimes it makes sense to maybe do a more expensive tool if you're doing SEO for others and
Mm,
you're working with multiple clients. But if you are just doing SEO for yourself, so just like podcast episodes, blog posts, like products, whatever it is that you're doing research on, I think Uber Suggest is a really, really great tool. And this tool lets you see everything from how your keywords are ranking, how your content's ranking, how your overall domain and website ranks. And that's kind of the best all in one tool that you can use, I'd say, to kind of see everything in one place. So there's a lot of like different one off tools you can use. You can check your authority and your credibility with like a domain checker. You can
mm,
check how many keywords you're indexed for with certain other tools and things like that. But the one that really lets you see everything, I'd say, is Uber Suggest. And they do allow 3 free searches a day. So you can use it strategically if you are very smart about how you're searching daily and stay on the free plan. But they also have lifetime plans. So that's why I always like kind of push that platform because
mhm,
it's what I used even before I invested in something like SEMrush
mm,
because it is super affordable. And my clients saw the same growth when I used a tool like that than when I do SEMrush because the magic isn't in the tool that you use.
mhm.
So a lot of times we think like, oh, the most expensive tool is going to be the best. Not really. Like it's all around you. Like the tool is helping you and guiding you, but you as the user need to understand your audience. And you
Uh,
need to understand like who they are and what you want to see. Like using a tool to tell you a keyword has really high volume, great, but just because it has high volume doesn't make it right for you. So you have to do that in-depth work to learn and understand your audience, and a tool isn't going to do that. So I
mm,
always tell people that when it comes to like Yoast. So if people are using WordPress and Yoast as a
mhm.
plugin, everyone's like, gotta get the green lights, right? Like Yoast, rank math, whatever it is. Like you gotta get the green lights. And I'm like, just because you get green doesn't mean you're gonna show up on page 1 of Google, or doesn't mean you're
Mhm.
gonna show up in ChatGPT. It's a tool to help you, but the tool isn't the magic. The
Yeah.
magic is in understanding the content that you just wrote and is it going to resonate? Are people going to click and engage? So I think sometimes we give too much credit to these tools
Mhm.
because we don't understand SEO. And so then we feel nervous. So we're just like, I'm going to let the tool tell me exactly what to do rather than just thinking about it as like search engines and AI, all they want to do is deliver people really good content. So
Yeah.
if you, as a creator, focus on creating really good content that people actually want to hear, then ultimately you're going to do really good. Like that's
Yeah.
how it works. So I think we tend to overcomplicate this topic a lot.
Okay. I love it because there's so much crossover between podcast and SEO, which
Mhm.
people probably don't even realize.
Yes.
But
Oh
before
yeah.
we get there, okay, the first time we officially connected, I think it was in September, you were you said you guys were currently testing having the podcast player in your blog
Mhm.
style show notes everybody puts that at the top. I do. I have my clients do. You said you were moving it to the bottom. to
Uh-huh.
test it out. Can you share what you were doing there, and have you seen anything?
Yeah, so I don't feel like I have enough data to actually,
Okay.
like, showcase whether
Yeah.
or not this is working, but I can explain some of the reasoning as to why I did it. So, every page that you create in your website, including blog posts, all have the potential to rank on their own. You can think of them as like individual landing pages. So, one of the reasons why I love creating blog posts for your podcast episodes is because now that's a whole new way someone can find your
Huh.
podcast, right? People can find you by searching on podcast platforms, but people can also find you searching on Google or
Mhm.
asking ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever tool it is that you want to use. So it's a whole new world. And typically, if your blog post, if the main goal of your blog is to attract people in that digital world, not necessarily podcast listeners, then I don't want that first thing being that podcast
Mm.
episode to deter them from actually reading the rest of it. Because there's a lot of different formats of show notes out there. So, like, some people just do transcripts. Some people
Yeah.
just do bullets. And I'd love to pick your brain on this so we can talk about
Yeah.
this in a second. Some people do full on blog posts. And so people might see that and immediately bounce back out and be like, oh, I don't want to listen to a pod. I just wanted to see
Mhm.
like what this topic was about. And also there's another metric for performance. So core web vitals, I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty. It's like the fancy new word for page speed. So it's these three metrics that break down page speed in even more specificity, um, and telling you how your page is loading. So one of them is how the first part of your page loads. So like anything above the fold, how
Mm.
quickly does it load? So if you have things like embed codes and heavy content sitting up top, it's going to take a little bit longer for that content to load.
Oh.
So typically my recommendation if I'm any other post, like other than podcasts, is like put your embed codes at least below the fold, like so that it takes longer, or that it loads later so it doesn't take longer for a page to load. So because of that, I was like, I wonder if that would impact the performance on the blogs. If having that podcast, if it's loading just a little bit slower, maybe it won't be as optimized as it could be.
Mhm.
So that's one of the reasons why we just decided to shift it to the bottom. Um, I'm still experimenting with like, should we have like a jump to link, like a jump to the podcast or something like that within the blog? But if you go to our Duo Collective /blog, you can see like all of our recent episodes, put it at the bottom with like a sign off down there. Um, and we just recently started adding in YouTube. So now I'm also like experimenting rather than putting everything at the bottom, I'm mixing it in.
Mhm.
So I feel like this is something like even as an SEO expert, I'm using air quotes here. Um, you're still testing and learning all the time. Like
And
there's never a right answer. It's just like what's going to work. What's going to work? You test and then you look at the analytics and then you see how it works. So because blogs take a while, to just like start tracking and show performance. Typically, I tell people to look at like 3-month windows at a time. So I don't think it's been a full 3 months that we've been doing this. So it'll be interesting to continue to
yeah.
track this. But I feel like my gut is telling me that this might be more successful for the blog in particular. And ultimately, like if I think about the goal of that blog, it's not to promote the podcast solely, it's to bring new people to my website. So if I think about it in that sense, it's kind of like it's okay. It doesn't matter that it's not the
The
first thing. It can be later.
Okay, I love this, and I do work with my clients on creating really rich, SEO rich blog style show notes that are more fleshed out. Because why not? Like we have this amazing content. If we can turn it into a blog, a readable blog, we can reach more people. And at the top, we do a player, and then in the middle is the YouTube. But I personally, now that I'm thinking, because in my head, I like see my template and my format that I recommend. And I do love the idea of taking the player and putting it below, just below the fold that says something with, if you want to listen to the podcast, you can do so
Yeah.
here. So I'm excited, and you'll have to keep us posted on what you
Yeah.
see. But it makes
Ditto.
sense.
I know. I know. It does. It's like it does make sense. And I think it's something I never really thought of because it was just like everyone's doing it this way. But I think that's also the magic and like
Mhm.
what if we just try something different? Like, what if we just do something different and see what happens? So I think, I mean, with that segue too, I want to ask you because one of the things when it comes to like marketing your podcast, I think a lot of times people, and we've done this, and like, we take it and clip it vertically and then put it on reels, and it's like, meh, it's fine. It's just, I just don't love, again, you know how I feel about Instagram. And I think there's a lot of people who podcast and they love podcasting, but they might not like social media. And I'm curious, outside of social media, like what are other ways that you kind of push people to market their podcast to like help reach new people and get new listeners?
I love this question. So, I'm a big fan of creating podcast first funnels for getting people into your world, but then directly sending them to your podcast as kind of the first touch point. So, we can do this, through a few ways. One, I love a podcast centric quiz. So, quizzes historically have performed great and continue to perform great. And this is a big strategy I teach my clients. We're very strategic about how we do it and really focus on making sure that we have essentially these buckets for our ideal customers, and then we curate a podcast list or a podcast playlist depending on what they get. Now the nice thing about that also is, like, do you guys have 200 episodes now, Abby? Like, you guys have a lot.
Almost. Yeah,
Yeah.
almost.
So
Just wild.
say somebody lands on your show and it's like, where do I even start? They're scrolling through. Maybe they land on one that you're like, that wasn't our best. And then, but this way we can curate which episodes we are driving them to right from the get go. We can give them the best performing episodes for them and where they are specifically. And then we can nurture them into an email sequence, maybe sell them into an offer. So I love that specific way. And then another way is taking these episodes that you have and bundling them together into either like a specific pain point, or if you want to learn how to create a podcast first or quiz funnel, like maybe I bundle together 3 episodes that are specifically about that. And then I use that almost as my lead magnet. Like, that is the lead magnet. I've seen these perform so well. And actually, I feel they perform better on Instagram when you use them as, like, you know, the freebie that you're driving people to over a B roll or a carousel than having the reels from one episode. Like, it gets more engagement, people are more excited about it, and it gets people to our email list and episodes. So I love those ones. Another way is obviously through a newsletter, like, engage with your audience every week. I really love lifestyle newsletters versus just this is this week's episode kind of newsletters. I think a lot of people just got sick of those. And so really the trend that we're seeing is these really engaging kind of lifestyle type, newsletters. Like, I think about for you guys, you did your thrift store, shopping. And it's like,
Mhm.
that's super fun to put in your newsletter and take them behind the scenes, or, talk about SEMrush or Uber suggests. And then, oh, by the way, this is the podcast episode we released this week. So doing that. And then you can use your website, use pop ups, use banners on your website. I had one client actually tell me, so we created bundles and then we did pop ups on our website. And she said to me before we did them, I just don't know. I feel like this is slightly a waste of time because I just don't know that I have traffic going to my website. And she had like 3,700 people opt in to this bundle in the first 10 days from her website. And then like 7,000 after a couple weeks. And it was like, she even came back and was like, okay, I guess there are people going to my website. And so there's so many wonderful ways that we can be using it. And again, blog style show notes. So those are all really wonderful ways to be repurposing our content and driving people to our podcast beyond social media.
Yeah, I love that because I mean, obviously you get to a point where you have 200 episodes and you have some really great ones, but they're older and got to
Mhm.
scroll for a long time to find them. And yeah, it's such a great way to take that content that's really, really good and continue to use it. And I love that idea of not just promoting single episodes because that's kind of what you think of as like, okay, I published an episode. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to email my list. I'm going to
Yeah.
post it on Instagram. I'm going to do a YouTube, whatever. So I think that's really, it's an interesting approach and also kind of simplifies things rather than just having to focus on that one episode that you're pushing out. How do you feel about re-airing episodes? I'd love to know that because I mean, selfishly, as someone who has a lot of episodes, like we've done this every now and again. And honestly, it's not as strategic as it might seem. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, this applies to what we're doing right now. And other times it's just like, crap, Court and I, like, Court, we can't get together. What
Yeah.
are we going to do? It's either like a solo episode or it's let's re-air something that, was still really good a year ago.
So this is probably as close to A/B testing as we can get
Uh-huh.
for podcasting. I'm okay with it. I mean, I think it's great so long as the content is good. Your audience will tell you, again, we can test it and see what the analytics say. But the cool thing is you can repurpose it and then do a better title or something like that. And just what what works, what resonates.
Mhm.
And, obviously if you do it twice and both times flop, your audience might, be not interested in the repurposed episodes, but you also probably have new followers and new people finding you who haven't listened to that episode. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And that also goes, I mean, hand in hand from an SEO perspective, taking old blogs, refreshing them, and publishing them with the new publish date is actually just as powerful as creating new content. And I think we forget that is like we need to think about our website's overall quality and not just quantity of what we're pushing out. And so I think the power of when you re-air an episode of going back to those show notes and seeing,
Yeah.
oh, I could actually update this a little bit better, add new links to new blogs or new podcasts that I've
Mhm.
like done that I can link to that are now relevant that I didn't have before. And all of those things are really helpful from an SEO perspective. So it kind of goes hand in hand of being able to reshare something with your subscribers while also refreshing something for Google and AI bots. So
Okay, I love that so much. I didn't even think of that. Like, if I were to
see, they go
repurpose.
together perfectly.
Yes. So I launched my show in January of this year because that's when I started my business. So I knew obviously I was going to have a podcast. And so I don't know that I'm at the point to repurpose yet, but my goodness, if I was, I do feel like I probably would have written show notes. I mean, I would have used the old ones, but to be able to just, update the date and add to it a little bit, that's so brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, and the date is key. So I think that's something that refresh like actually republish it with the fresh date rather than just like saving it as a new like I know there's two different ways you can do it on WordPress. So
Right.
you can just save or you can actually update the date. So updating the date is actually good. And if you think about it, even if you're on Google looking at content, like the dates for the articles are there on the Google search page. And if you see something that says 2016, you may not click on that because you're like, that is almost 10 years old. Like, why is that still going to be relevant? So, actually changing the date is a good thing, not only for Google, but humans too, because I know I look at that even subconsciously.
Yep. I do too. Okay. So do we have to be on WordPress to rank?
No, no, you don't.
Okay.
This is like, that's a big thing that a lot of people say just like your website needs to be built on WordPress or it needs to be custom developed or all of this stuff. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. They're all good. They all exist for different reasons. Like there are certain platforms that are really user friendly. And that's why, because not everyone's a web designer. Not everyone can build their own website and feel confident about it. And so it's like you have these tools and they are helping to make your life easier. So we work like from an SEO perspective, we work on every platform. Wix, Showit, Squarespace, WordPress, everything. So it's something where it doesn't matter as long as things are optimized. And I would say the only last I heard, I don't know if Canva's still doing it, but Canva had a website builder. And that
Oh.
was the one where I was like, don't use
Mm.
that. Like there's literally no SEO abilities on it. Like you
Yeah.
can't even write your own SEO titles and like different things like
Mhm.
that. So if there isn't any SEO capabilities, obviously don't use that. But most platforms have SEO capabilities. And if they do, then it's just, again, it just goes back to understanding your audience, filling out the
Mhm.
right foundational things, and
Yep.
you'll be just fine. So I think WordPress is like people say king because you have the plugins like Yoast and Rank
Yeah.
Math and it makes it easier. But again, those tools are just guides to help you. And you can also just have your own checklist off to the side of like, did I use my keyword here? Good. Cool. I'll give myself a green check mark and then move on. So, no, you don't have to.
I love that.
Oh, I feel like I could ask you questions
I know.
all day
Me
long.
too.
Okay, so what are like going back, and I think this is something that even for us, we have switched so often, and we talked about this last time we chatted actually, like switching platforms that we're like hosting on and recording on. So I would love to hear from you a little bit about like what your favorite platforms are, what you might have used, what you like. Obviously there's a whole bunch out there and I think that can sometimes be a barrier to starting even.
Mhm.
It's just like where to go. And I
Mhm.
guess a little thing is like for us, we started one place and we've switched maybe 3 or 4 times. You can
Yeah.
switch. So like I don't want that to be a deterrent for anyone, but it is something where it's like, wow, what's going to be easiest for us
Yeah.
and where our podcast should live.
Okay, so are you talking specifically about podcast hosting platforms or like the other platforms that we use to
Okay,
like
maybe
all the production
hosting
stuff?
and recording.
Okay.
And then maybe
Mhm.
just talk like a quick synopsis about the difference just in case people are like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. No, I'm so glad we're talking about this because I have people who have had a podcast for a long time still on one that's like the Canva of Word.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll talk about okay. So the podcast hosting platform is essentially you put your audio, your show notes, your show name onto a platform that is like your home platform for all of that. And then that platform spits it out in one fell swoop to Apple, Spotify, YouTube podcasts, just all of the different cast box, like all of the things. And then so that's that. Recording platform would be where you can like hop on and record your audio. You can have, guests like Abby and I are doing right now. You can edit inside of them. There's a lot of capabilities within those to actually edit your podcast as well. So when it comes to podcast hosting platforms, if you are serious about hosting, or I'm sorry, if you are serious about growing your podcast and continually like staying up with it, do not use Spotify for creators. It is free, and there is a reason it's free. And they're probably going to come at me. This is my truth. This is my truth. Um, there are a lot of platforms out there now. Back in the day when I was like running Amy's, there was like two to choose from. Now there's a ton of hosting platforms that have a lot of really great user friendly capabilities and features. And so, a couple that I just tend to push to people or just really recommend is Buzzsprout and Captivate. I'm loving those because they just give you so much functionality. They give you good metrics to follow beyond just downloads. And the biggest thing, especially if you're an entrepreneur, is they let you insert dynamic ads. And so dynamic ads are ads that they're more timely and you can like insert them into specific episodes or your entire back catalog. So Abby pushes go on it and it goes across 200 episodes promoting the course that they're launching right now. And they can have it live for a week or 2 weeks and then you can take it away really easy. So anybody listening to this, you hear these all the time. A baked in ad is say Abby and I are promoting something organically, we mention it in this show. That will live there forever. I'm never going to go back and remove it. It will always be in that even 2-3 years later. And so there are some platforms that it's a little harder to do the dynamic ads. Spotify for creators does not have this feature. Libsyn, it's a little bit of a difficult barrier to use them. So that's why I'm like, if that is the way you want to go, Buzzsprout, Captivate are great and they're not super expensive. And then for recording, I'm a big fan of Riverside, which is what we're on right now. I've used other ones. The quality is so much better than like Zoom for various reasons. And so I'm a big fan of Riverside and you can edit inside of Riverside. It also gives you AI options to create reels. So the reels that we talked about, it'll like chunk them down for you from your episode. It'll give you show notes, episode names, all that kinds of stuff. So that's kind of a quick overview of the platforms I like to use. And one thing I will say, because I did this, I have clients do this, try not to hop around on your podcast hosting platform. Um, I started with Libsyn because it's something I'm used to. And I was like, oh, I feel so bottlenecked. So I moved and you kind of like want to save that data, but it's easier when you just stay in one.
Yeah, we used to be on Podbean and we switched to Captivate and you lose your analytics, which I do appreciate that Captivate does allow you to import your old analytics so you can still see them in your dashboard. But I just can't see, like when I look at all time numbers, it's not accurate because it's not truly all time. And because podcast, like if you have a podcast that has a blog associated with it, you will continue to get listens on old podcasts. And so it's nice to see what's still continuing to grow. So yeah, I think that's something that is a bummer when you switch. But yeah, we switched to Captivate. I do really love it. Captivate is great. And Riverside is one of the ones that we just recently switched to.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to do a whole Court and I need to do a whole separate pod on how to do a 2-person in-person
Yeah.
podcast because wow, is there no information out there? Like, let me tell you, trying to figure out how to get your audio on 2 different lines so that you can clearly edit it while you're in the same room with the recording device. It's just is wild. Like it is blowing my mind how complex it is. And I'm like, there has to be an easier way because this is like what I do all day long is like take really complex topics and boil them down into something really simple. And I'm like, why can't I figure this out? I'm smart. Like it's wild. So TBD on that. But we will share it once we figure it out, if we ever figure it out, because it is wild. So
Oh my gosh.
Riverside, thankfully, has been very helpful, though.
Good.
I've emailed them a few times being like, "What? What am I
Yeah.
doing?" So this
Yeah.
is easy. Like us talking
Yeah.
virtually,
Mhm.
in person is a whole different ballgame. So that'll be fun to share in the future when I actually have answers.
Yeah. Okay, I'm laughing because my husband and I, we pod faded, just because we were busy with the daughter and we were just doing it for fun. But
Right?
we about a year ago we started a podcast called The Full Time Adventure, and because we live on the road full time with the daughter, and we just wanted to. People ask us all the time, like, you know,
Yeah.
all of
You
our
should do sprinkle
stories.
in episodes on your pod. You like
Oh
monthly.
my gosh,
That would
that
be
could be
fun.
fun. I
Uh-huh.
could
You
do
should. I
something
would
like that.
definitely tune into that.
It was good. The idea, I'm sure it could have done great, but but trying to record, it was tough. Like we had one mic, we ended up just doing one microphone because we're like, we don't want to pour into. But as a
Yeah.
business, I would definitely spend time figuring it out. But
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yep. We do 2 mics, but it's one line because lately
Okay.
we've been using Tela to record, which I love Tela. Tela is an amazing video platform tool that we recommend all the time. We use it for our course, we use it for everything.
Mhm.
And they've been on our podcast and we've talked with them about it.
Well,
And he's like, we don't recommend podcast episodes because it's not supposed to be for pods.
sure.
And I'm like, well, it works really well for us. So sorry, we're gonna gonna keep using it. The only negative is the editing of being able to edit. Court and I'm loud, Court's quiet. So like being able to edit our voices differently is kind of key. But I will also say to anyone who's like listening and they're like deterred from starting or like continuing because they don't have it all perfect. We're
Mm,
200 almost 200 episodes in and we still don't feel like we know what we're doing half the time. So it's like
right.
you just you just grab a mic and you talk and
Mm.
it's not that hard. Or we
Ugh,
don't have to make it that hard. It's not that deep, right? That's what people say now. So
I couldn't agree more. I'm so glad you shared that. So I would love to know, like, okay, we this is fun. So I am big on using keywords within your episode titles because Apple and Spotify are their own search platforms, and so we want to be leaning into it. So how can we use some of the strategies that you use with your students to figure out what those keywords are? And one thing I'll say that you said is always going back to like what our audience is saying. As much keyword research as we can do, it's like go and have a conversation with your ideal customers in Instagram DMs or something. But I would love to know, like, how can we use some of these tools that are at our disposal to figure out some of those keywords to help us naming our episode titles?
yeah, for sure. I just listened to your episode 2 on AI, like don't use a like the AI watch outs of titling your episode, which yeah, can be very scary. And leaning into keywords, I think can really help avoid the like sometimes if you read an episode title and you're like, what are you actually going to talk about? Then,
Mhm.
it's a little too fluff. But
Mhm.
keywords can kind of help eliminate the fluff and just get to the point of what is it that you're going to talk about. Um, I would say so one thing now that wasn't really true before is before you were kind of looking at like a 1 to 3 word keyword. Like you were looking for something maybe it's 4 words, but like it's relatively a true keyword in this kind of like bracketed sense. Now, the way people search, especially with AI, they search full out questions. Like people
Mm.
are searching longer. And so it's kind of changing the way to think about keywords. It doesn't have to be as short as you might think. Like sometimes the keyword is an entire question, and that's what you are going to answer. So, I, again, if people are like, I don't even know where to start, I don't know what my
Mm.
audience even wants, or they go to a tool like Uber Suggest or Key Search or Keywords Everywhere, and they're using these tools to help them find keywords. But if they don't know what their audience wants, you again might find a really good keyword, but your audience doesn't care about it. So even though it's a good keyword and a lot of people are searching for it, it's not the right people that are searching for it.
Mhm.
So I always recommend starting with your audience, like wherever your audience lives, whether it's Instagram, whether it's your email list, whether it's uh, Pinterest, like doesn't matter. Just put something out there that encourages people to give you a response,
Yeah.
and don't make it multiple choice, like make it open ended. So what is it that you'd like to hear from me? Or like what types of content do you want to hear about? What are the biggest struggles you're having right now in your business?
Mm.
Things like that are just open ended, that are basically like, don't just say, what podcast do you want to hear? Because it's almost too specific. I'd almost rather you ask a question like, what problems are you facing right now? What are
Mm.
you struggling with? Get those answers, because now you can do the research behind those to find it.
Mhm.
And then one of my favorite things to do is to back into a keyword. So if you start there and then your audience says like, what am I struggling with? So maybe they say, I'm struggling with, I don't know how to grow my podcast. It's stagnant. I'm going to literally take that and I'm going to Google that and I'm going to say, podcast growth is stagnant. What should I do? Like, I'm literally just going to Google that long thing, because honestly, as a user, that's probably what I would do, right? I'd
Mhm.
Google that whole sentence. I wouldn't just Google podcast
Mm.
stagnant or something, I'd Google the whole question. And then I'll go look on the Google search page. Okay, what's ranking? What
Mm.
feels similar in the type of content that I might want to create? So finding a similar like blog, like I'm not going to open a Reddit thread because I'm not about to go on Reddit, right? So like I'm going to try and find similar content on page 1 of Google. Then I'm going to take that URL of that page and put it into something like Uber Suggest. So Uber
Mm.
Suggest just has a search bar at the top where you can just search any URL, anything. You can search your competitors, you can search other people's podcasts, you can search other people's blogs, and then you can see what keywords people used to find this URL.
Mm.
Now, sometimes if your question that you typed into Google is like really, really niche, it might just pop up as 0, like there's no volume. But if you can like maybe shorten your question then, or just try and get something a little bit more broad, then you can start finding content that helps you back into those
Mm.
keywords of like, oh, this is what people are searching for. And then you can use that to help personalize the content. Like I always tell people, when you're backing into a keyword, it's a really fun way to like do that detective work to see like, okay, how did people find this website? What were they typing in? But we don't want to just copy exactly what they just did. So it's also like put your own spin on it. And that's where I think AI can be super helpful. If ChatGPT knows you, your business, your unique point of difference, if ChatGPT knows all that stuff about you and then you know the keyword you want to go for, you can ask it, hey, what's a unique spin I can bring on this topic that's related to my business that's going to attract my audience? And then it will give
Mm.
you some ideas. So if you feel stuck, you can kind of use that as a guide. But that's kind of my favorite way to back into keywords when I'm like, okay, now I know what my audience wants. Now let's figure out what the keyword is that I can use to include.
Okay, I love that so much. I can't wait to do it. And
It's fun.
yes, and then we go and we use those keywords that we found and we create content around it for our podcast and then we name. And one thing I'll say about episode naming is just like the titles, you can use the same keywords over and over in your titles because it continues to tell Spotify and Apple that you are the go-to expert for that. And then it'll start showing as the ranking for that. So,
Yes, I love that.
yeah.
And bringing that again back to like what SEO and AI tools want now is that expertise. So, like something that's been around forever, it's called EAT. So, it's EEAT. And it's one of the most important things for showing up on search now and showing up on AI. So, it stands for expertise, experience, authority, and trust. You need to like showcase your expertise, your experience, and have your authority in your own topic and prove that people can trust you. So, this is
Mhm.
things like testimonials, showcasing case studies, like talking with other experts and authority figures in the industry, just like showcasing your experience and why you know what you know. Like, what
Mm,
can you say about like who you are and why you have this experience and expertise? All of that is actually tied to the credibility of your domain. So your .com is all tied to this factor. And if these tools trust you, you're going to pop up a lot higher. So that's something too that like it's it's so much easier, I think, to showcase your expertise and your experience on something like a podcast
yeah.
because you can actually talk about it. And most of the time when you're on guest podcasts, like one that's a backlink, which is a link of you on someone else's website, which is another trust signal. Like this
Mhm.
person trusted me to put my website on their website. So because of that, now Google is like, "Oh, you must know what you're talking about.
Mm.
You must have authority in this topic." And it gives you that little boost. So it can be such an easy way to grow your SEO and just kind of tie everything together.
Oh, this is so fun. I really do feel like we could keep going, but I think at the end of the day, what we know is that podcasting is an SEO play. And so everything that Abby teaches is very similar to, things we can be using as podcasters as well. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this has been great. I have really loved just like hearing some of the strategies. I think podcast growth can feel like
mm,
such an over I think a lot of times we think, "Okay, I need to push ads or I need to do something like that." And especially when you have a lot of content. Like I love the strategies of being able to use a quiz and being
mhm.
able to drive
Yeah.
people in and using your content as freebies. Like it's just a
Mhm.
no-brainer because it allows you not to have to create something new, but repurpose what you already have and something you're already proud of. So, I love things that feel easy and simple
I
because we have enough
agree.
to do, right?
We do. We do. Oh, one thing I wanted to say though, that's so cool. I love that you mentioned like case studies on your website. So, where my mind goes is how we can do this as a podcaster. For instance, I have a student who's going to be coming on. We had such great success. I'll interview her and then I will essentially turn it into a blog, which is basically a case study. And boom, I love it. Like, I love
Yeah.
that we can do that. We can literally lean into our eat our
Yep.
SEO, and
Right?
also use it to grow our podcast, drive people to our offers, all of the things.
I know. I love it. We did just do a podcast. It hasn't it's airing very soon, but we did one with a brand client of ours. We just launched her website. And so we talked about the whole process. And yeah, that is absolutely I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure I maybe would have thought about it later, but now I'm like, duh, why aren't we putting that on the portfolio page? It's just
Yes.
like it's just another way to like connect all of your content rather than being like, oh, I have one strategy here, one strategy there.
Yeah,
Like let's just bring it all together and make it work harder.
I love it. Oh, okay, Abby, where can people go to find you and Court and Duo Collective?
Yes, we are at dualcollective.com. We are probably most active, I would say, on Instagram from a social media platform. So duo.collective. And then Duo on Air is our podcast. Like I've said, we have almost 200 episodes to binge. And yeah, I think that's pretty much where we're most active. We do have an email. We have a Tuesday tips and sips, and an SEO squeeze that comes out on Sunday.
Mhm.
That is one of our more popular newsletters that basically is one thing you can do to better your SEO each week. And that's meant to be like 5 minutes or less. So that is kind of one of my favorite things to share. How about
I've
you?
been
Where can everyone go to find you?
Well, before I share that, I will say I've been on your newsletter for a long time, and I love your newsletter. So
Thank you.
So I just this week launched a brand new product, which is called the Podcast Growth Toolkit. And so if you are like wanting to implement some of these growth strategies, you can go to podcastmarketinghub.com/toolkit to check that out. And then otherwise, I am on Instagram at Kylie, KYLEEJ Chandler. So we went with my name for that one. And I like hanging out there because I love to get in DM conversations with my ideal or my followers and my ideal listeners and everyone and just have conversations there. And then otherwise you can get on my newsletter at podcastmarketinghub.com and all the good things. Yeah.
Awesome. Yay. Well, thank you so much. This has been just
Mm.
awesome. I'm so excited. We might need to do a part 2 later.
I was thinking that too. I'm like, we didn't get hardly to any of our questions that we actually
I know.
had. So
We
we
both
will
have like a mile long word doc
we do.
of just all these questions that we want to ask. So
I
we're,
know. I love it. Let's plan another after your maternity leave. Let's get back on and all
yes,
that good stuff.
yes.
So,
Let's do
Abby,
it.
this was such a gift. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you. This is awesome.
Thanks.